Welcome back to our channel, and today we're going to review what happened last week at CitizenCon 2954 or 2024. On day one of CitizenCon, the first topic we're going to go over was Genesis, A Brave New World. Here it was mostly focused around how are the worlds really created, and currently their goal is to make the biomes scalable to an unlimited amount. This is going to be happening by, rather than creating each little plant themselves, it's going to be generated, and they will essentially give it an input of multiple variables such as sunlight, humidity, temperature, pH, distance, weather conditions to create the world. We're also going to see that each of these will be basically a layer. We have the bedrock layer, the soil layer, the debris, and then, depending on weather condition, snow. And all of these 4 layers are actually in one shader, so that should help with some optimization of the game. Overall, the spawned environments should decrease the time spent creating the world, as not every asset is going to be created individually. They are more or less AI generated. So what do you think that means to the player?
I mean, if they do it right, I think what it'll mean is when you go to farm on your plantation or on your settlement, you'll actually have to think about what type of soil, what type of nutrients are in the soil, temperature, and water levels to actually get stuff to grow correctly. Then that's if they do it right. We'll see how they implement it, but that would actually be really cool. What do you think?
I think that would be really cool if that worked out and we actually see that these microbiomes matter. Yeah, we'll see how far we get on base building, and if this is going to be a parameter that gets fed into it, or if we're just going to do whatever. So another topic they talked about is that they will use multi-core terrain rendering, which is another optimization. So we'll get more frames to actually play the game, another slideshow. In addition to that, there will be more terrains than what we have currently, with the next ones being the swamp and potentially a jungle. So I think that could be kind of cool to see some other landscapes out there. On top of that, they will choose where the settlements are. They want to make a narrative out of it, like why certain people choose to live next to certain resources rather than just putting them in a meaningless location. So with this, we're also going to talk a little bit about dynamic world interaction and user-built locations. There will be a day and night cycle that will, of course, respond to the environment, and our perception will change. So we'll actually have a use for headlamps and other items. Another topic we talked about with Genesis was the sound Doppler effect, which is the distortion of sound as the origin of the sound or the source of the sound moves closer or further away. So in terms of how does this impact us, it would be projectiles are actually traveling faster than the speed of sound, which means you could technically die to some gunfire or ship fire before you ever hear it. Not that you should be hearing anything in space, but on the planet, yeah, you might die before you can hear the bullet go off, so watch out for that. Lastly, we talked a little bit about planetary weather. This included clouds and the light being scattered in the clouds and the clouds actually forming, which I thought was kind of cool. So you don't have the same copy and paste 5 clouds above your head at all times. Additionally, we have the wind that will now start blowing things over and making ships drift. So that will add some realism to the game. The big one is the environmental hazards such as lightning. I believe they even showed what it would look like getting struck by lightning, and that can take your ship down in terms of, all your electrical components frying, etc. They didn't go into details. But there may be situations where you'll be forced to stay landed and underground due to the weather. The next topic we are covering is the social universe, which, of course, starts with server meshing. Now, there's many YouTube videos out there, so we're not going to go into greater details about server meshing, but it's a work in progress. Another item is that Star Citizen needs to come up to the MMO standards in terms of gameplay loops and social interactions. So the devs gave us a little bit of a rundown on what they've been working on. The biggest change is going to be social changes in the MOBA class itself. We'll have access to friends list, and that friend list will be inside the game, not just in the lobby like it is currently. Additionally, you can add your own notes to friends and enemies alike, which means you also have an enemy list. Additionally, the voice chat will be linked to the Mobi Glass, so it will be just much easier to handle and a much better experience overall. Then you also get, as I mentioned, a enemies or hostile and blocked list, and you can leave a little note of why you didn't like these people. On top of that, we're going to add some party markers and syncing, which makes it much easier to see your friends. And it will also add the capability of showing you which friends are on board which ships. So if you're like in an org and you want to know who of your friends are all together in a ship and who to yell at, etc., you will know who's in whose ship. Additionally, we are going to be looking at adding a party finder and various chat channel options such as general, party, combat log, all of the options that you usually find in MMOs. So I think this is going to be very useful when it comes to the instance content or events, so you can actually find a party to do the events with. One cool thing they also showed was VoIP and FOIP, so the head and face movement tracking using a camera rather than just the Tobii eye tracker. So that was pretty cool. And then, of course, the voice servers are going to get a complete overhaul. Lastly, we talked about some guide systems. The guide system is changing, and there's going to be certain tiers, and you will get a rating in terms of how well you performed a certain task. So people can look up how well you respond to beacons, what your trust rating is, what your, service rating is, as well as their proficiency. With that comes also, of course, standings of orgs and guilds. And lastly, one really cool social aspect that I think a lot of people are going to like is the org paints on both clothing and ships itself. So that will be really exciting. Equally exciting will be the updates to armor. I know we've talked about this in Inside Star Citizen, but we got a little bit more of a concrete idea now. So we're going to be looking at dressing for your role. So the armor rating will include mobility, protection, stealth, detectability. One of the big ones they showcased was the combat armor, which is basically a walking tank at low speed and mobility, but high protection rating. Then there was a hunter armor, civilian clothing, and then the sniper armor, which basically is undetectable when scanning. And in this segment, they also start mentioning the sandworm, the Valakar, which I'm sure everybody has seen the videos of. It comes in multiple sizes, but that will be the number one enemy to go after, especially on Pyro. Now let's take a look at the final part of day one, which was Beyond Pyro. The first thing they showcased was the upcoming Nyx system that was discovered in 2582 by Carla Larry. And this is going to be the next system we'll be actually getting in-game. This system is known for its very dark dust clouds, and it borders Vandal space, which means there will be raiding parties that come for your base potentially. With this, we get Delamar, which some of us remember. Now it's an actual asteroid. It's a 0G location. We're also going to see Levski, our good old friend. Welcome back. This is an old mining facility with old tunnels and mine shafts, and this is going to be updated and contain a lot of the mission loops. So I can see some foot missions as well as potentially space missions. We'll see how that's going to go. They showcased what the hangars will look like and the docking services. That all looked pretty cool. With that, we also saw the whole series freight elevators. Then we have ArcCorp, the DETs, the municipal works. This is going to be a mission-locked area, so this is something new that we haven't experienced in Star Citizen, but a lot of MMO players are going to be familiar with. There's going to be filtration and sewers in the municipal works that are below the ground. It's kind of similar to the Pyro contested zones, but the purpose is to have access to the depth, which is kind of more or less like your level up tower. Not quite a dungeon, but that's how they described it. It's going to take you multiple play sessions to progress. You can upgrade your access level, really like an Ascension Tower in most standard MMOs. This will be progression-based content with rewards. Now, one thing they didn't mention is what those rewards are. So once again, we can just guess of if these are going to be worth it, or if this is just another way of keeping us interested in the game while we're working on something else. Then, of course, the Stanton system will continue to be updated. We know the Pyro system, the unlawful system is coming. That's going to be our next system. And the Nyx system, which is kind of in between. Not quite unlawful, but not lawful either. It is not protected by the UE Now, the big news was there's actually a fourth system they've been working on. According to the Galactopedia, in 2542, the Perry Line, no-fly zone, was established, and this leads us to the Castra system, which is basically bordering the no-fly zone of the United Planets of Earth. They showed us Castra 1, which is a dead coreless bullseye used for target practice, so there's a lot of toxic smokes, etc. This will probably require us to wear the appropriate armor, such as a hazmat suit, to even survive there. Then they also showed us Castra 2. This is a military staging and trade tourism area. It will contain the Red Forest, which is pretty cool. It also contains lakes and mountains, so there's going to be some pretty scenery that we will be seeing that has been generated for this planet. Now, the big one is, of course, the Sherman Landing Zone, which is the island in the sky that they showed, but it definitely got an overhaul, and it is currently in pre-production, so everything's up to changes. But it does look pretty cool. It's pretty huge. The very final note of day one ended with a demo of Squadron 42 that is feature complete, but not quite ready for players. There were a few crashes, of course, as expected. They did a live demo, which was kind of cool. They're currently working on fully polishing the game. There's supposedly 40 hours in the main story. We got to see maybe the first 30 minutes, plus or minus some crashes, the first big fight that starts with a Vanduul conflict. So there was a couple cool ships to see. The Vanduul Blade. You're the main character surviving. You should check that out for yourself, see what you think about it. I think it looks pretty decent for a first-person player game. There's definitely some work that needs to be done in terms of optimization. There was some screen tearing, which could have been the PC they used, but they also have a video up, which we'll link here. And that completes day one of CitizenCon 2024.